Welcome to this explainer. Look, if you're stuck at an IELTS reading band score of around 6.0 or 6.5 right now, and you've only got, say, 3 to 4 weeks left to hit a 7.0 or maybe even an 8.0, well, you're absolutely in the right place. Today, we're ditching the generic, fluffy advice. We're going straight into the actual mechanics of the test. Because honestly, cracking a high score in IELTS reading, it isn't just about how well you understand English. It's really about mastering a highly specific set of test-taking tactics under some pretty intense time pressure.
So, here's our game plan for today. First, we'll cover the 8.0 band mindset. Then, core reading strategies. Third, the 60-minute breakdown. After that, paraphrasing and question types. And finally, crucial do's and don'ts. Let's get right into it. Now, let's take a look at this master roadmap. Reaching that 8.0 over your next 3 to 4 weeks of prep isn't about crossing your fingers and hoping you get a passage you're actually interested in. No way. It's all about the rigid execution of these exact strategies we're looking at here. Every single time you sit down with a practice paper from now until test day, this roadmap basically needs to be your default operating system.
Okay, part 1, the 8.0 band mindset. This is all about moving from passive reading to targeted searching. And this quote right here really captures the whole philosophy. Targeted searching, not passive absorption. Honestly, the absolute biggest mistake keeping you stuck at that 6.0 mark is trying to read an IELTS passage like you'd read a normal book. Just linearly from the very first word to the very last. If you're reading passively and trying to absorb every tiny little detail, the clock is just going to run right out on you. An 8.0 scorer reads specifically to locate the answers to the questions. They turn this massive, intimidating block of text into a really simple data retrieval mission.
Moving on to part 2, core reading strategies. This is where we get into systematic skimming and scanning. Take a look at this 4-step attack plan. For week 1 of your preparation schedule, this should be your absolute main focus. Step 1, skim first. Spend just 60 to 90 seconds on the whole passage to grab the main ideas. Step 2, always read the questions before you dive into the paragraphs. You've got to know exactly what you're hunting for, right? Step 3, scan for keywords. And step 4, map the passage structure. Mentally note where the arguments shift, where they drop in examples, and where the conclusions happen. Since IELTS questions almost always follow the order of the passage, having this mental map is going to save you crucial minutes when you're jumping back and forth. Now, let's talk about scanning for keywords. Think of these as your visual anchors in the text. We're talking about proper nouns, numbers, dates, and capitalized words. Why these specific things? Well, because they are virtually impossible for the test makers to paraphrase. A date like 1994 or a name like Dr. Smith is going to look exactly the same in the text as it does in the question prompt. So scanning for these unchangeable anchors lets your eyes just fly over the page until you locate the exact sentence you actually need to read closely. Which brings us to a magic number, 90. Seriously, burn this number into your brain. You spend exactly 60 to 90 seconds on your initial skim. And, even more critically, you absolutely never, ever spend more than 90 seconds stuck on a single question. If a minute and a half ticks by and you're still just staring blankly at the page, you have to move on. Cut your losses.
All right, part 3, the 60-minute breakdown. We're talking about mastering time management under serious pressure.
This breakdown right here shows exactly how you need to budget that 1 hour. A super common trap is just dividing 60 by 3 and giving 20 minutes to each passage. But here's the thing, the passages get progressively harder. So instead, do this. Spend 1 to 2 minutes doing your global skim. Then aim for 17 minutes on passage 1 since it's the easiest. Give yourself 20 minutes for passage 2 and bank 23 minutes for passage 3, which is always the toughest. Finally, keep 2 to 3 minutes safe at the very end just to transfer and check your answers. For weeks 3 and 4 of your prep schedule, your goal is to strictly enforce these exact time limits at home with a stopwatch. No cheating!
Which leads us to part 4, paraphrasing and question types, decoding the test's language. Okay, so you need to realize a little secret about the IELTS. It's effectively just a massive paraphrase identification test in disguise. You are rarely, if ever, going to find the exact words from the question sitting right there plainly in the text. You have to actively expect synonym substitution, like seeing the word discover in the text instead of find. Expect grammatical restructuring, like they'll swap an active sentence into a passive one. And definitely expect clause reordering, where the end of the sentence in the question magically becomes the beginning of the sentence in the passage. The big takeaway here, don't look for matching words, look for matching meanings. And to actually apply this, you're going to have to navigate a pretty huge variety of question formats. Here are the 9 question types you really need to master. We're talking everything from multiple choice and matching headings all the way to diagram flowcharts. Now, each one of these does require a slightly different tactical tweak, but they all rely on that exact same core skill, finding your keyword anchor and decoding the paraphrase. But out of all of those, we really need to zero in on the most notorious question type on the entire board: true, false, not given. This single format causes test takers more anxiety than literally anything else on the exam, and that is exactly why mastering it should be your primary focus during week 2 of your study plan. This brings us to our final section, Part 5, Crucial Do's and Don'ts, how to avoid the traps that keep you stuck at a 6.0. Let's start with true, false, not given. First rule, absolutely do base your answers only on the text. Avoid bringing in any outside knowledge. Honestly, it doesn't matter if you're a literal world expert on the topic of the passage. If the fact isn't printed right there on the page in front of you, you cannot assume it's true. Plus, the most fatal mistake here is confusing not given with false. Remember, false means the text directly contradicts the statement. Not given simply means the text just doesn't give you enough information to prove it right or wrong. Do not fall into that trap.
Now, thinking about your overall study habits over these final 3 to 4 weeks, do practice with timed, real past papers every single week, but avoid spending more than 2 minutes on any single hard question. All that weekly time practice is completely useless if you can't discipline yourself to just let a tough question go. Every question is worth the exact same amount of points, so please don't sacrifice 3 easy points at the end of the test just because your ego wouldn't let you skip one ridiculously hard question in the middle. Finally, do check those word limits strictly for fill-in questions. If the instructions say no more than 2 words and you write down 3 words, your answer is instantly wrong, even if the information itself is technically correct. And whatever you do, avoid leaving your answer sheet blank. There is 0 penalty for wrong answers on the IELTS. Leaving a blank space on your answer sheet is basically an unforgivable test day sin. If you're completely stuck, just guess, write something down, and move on. So, I'll leave you with this final thought today. Are you ready to stop passively reading and start tactically hunting? Because making that leap to a 7.0 or an 8.0 in just a few short weeks isn't about magically upgrading your English vocabulary overnight. It's about treating this exam like a highly strategic military operation. Next time you sit down with a practice paper, don't just read. Skim, scan, anchor your keywords, manage your minutes ruthlessly, and execute this playbook. Thanks so much for joining me for this explainer, and hey, good luck hunting down those points.